So Unreal versus Unity, which one engine you should choose as a beginner? Just kind of preface before this person starts giving their take, okay? I think it largely depends if you're familiar with coding or if you are interested in learning coding. If you are, I think Unity is probably better. And if you're not, I think Unreal Engine is better. This is just from like a perspective of that as a beginner. But yeah.
So you're wondering which game engine is better, Unity or Unreal? You want to learn game development and you're wondering which engine should you choose. If you pick the wrong engine, you'll waste your time and then you'll need to start all over. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, given the fact how Brackeys quit making Unity tutorials after 8 years, tells you how awful the Unity engine is. I'm just kidding, or am I? Anyways, let's dive into a deep analysis of the main features of every engine you'll use during your game development journey and compare them to see which engine is better for a beginner game developer. Start the most important
I
part,
misclicked.
as that is where you'll spend your
Let me see, when was this made? Okay, 1 year ago. I see he's showing like Unreal 4, which is
time
fine,
the
but
most.
let's see.
Unity uses C#, while Unreal Engine uses C++. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to say that C# is easier to learn for a beginner, especially someone who has never written a single line of code before. The syntax is easier, and C# along with Unity does pretty much all the work behind the scenes for you, which means you don't have to worry about garbage collection that affect the memory and performance of your game and so on, because in C++ there are pointers that you need to.
I can understand the memory, but I'm not sure if... Do you really care about garbage collection in Unreal? In C++? I thought it was all dealt for you. Like, okay, you have like pointers, references, whatever, for the memory. But yeah, I think garbage collection, I think it's all automated. You just need to like... what is the name? You just need to... Just let the Unreal know that you are using their class or whatever. So it will be considered for garbage collection.
Get rid of when you stop using them, which can cause significant memory leaks that can hurt your game. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that C++ is a bad language. In fact, while it is a little harder to learn C++ than C# for a complete beginner, it might actually be smarter to pick it as the first language. The reason why is exactly the difficulty we're talking about, because when you learn C++, it will be much easier to learn any other language after it, including C#. Plus, if you plan to work in the game development industry, most big game studios either use Unreal Engine or they have their own custom engine which uses C++ as a programming language.
Yeah, if you're kind of focusing on programming and Unreal is kind of a way to kind of get into programming in game development, I think Unreal is probably better. But if you're just like casual, you just want to make games and you're interested in programming, probably Unity. Like C++, yeah, can be rough. Like I hate using it. I don't know. There is always like some like technical stuff, syntax stuff that you have to kind of think about. Like if I want a timer, let's say in Blueprints, it's like right click, timer by event, timer by function, put that in, connect it to the event, and everything triggers. In C++, you have to like initiate it into, I don't know, header, you need to put something in the class, then you have your whatever, and then you need to deal with the handle, and it's like, god damn it, I'm gonna spend like 2 hours adding this one timer, when in Blueprints I could literally spend like 5 seconds.
This doesn't mean you can't learn C++ after you learn C#, but tackling the harder part first makes everything after it much easier. All in all, both languages are object-oriented, so the concepts of how both languages work are the same. There's just the minor syntax difference between them. Moving on to Visual Code. For those of you who...
I think it's a little bit different. I think it's Unity more focuses on the components. I think they have more component-based system. I think Unreal can get a bit too much into inheritance and events, but yeah, they're kind of similar.
Don't want to get your hands messy with writing code from the very start, you can use Visual Code to create games. For a long time, Unreal Engine was a pioneer in this field with its blueprint system, which consists of nodes that you connect together to perform a certain action in your game. These nodes are visual coding blocks. It's basically the same code you would type using C++, but presented in a visual state. Because Unity was lagging heavily on the visual coding part, they bought.
To be fair, everyone is lagging on the coding part. I think like 5 years ago, the only one that was comparable with Unreal, at least as I remember, was like 2D game engines like Construct or maybe Game Maker. I'm not sure Game Maker how good it was like 5 years ago, but I remember Construct 2 or Construct 3. They had pretty nice like event-based visual scripting programming languages. But yeah, Blueprints were basically the only ones for like 3D games like a few years ago. I guess Unity now has some plugins or some integrated stuff, but yeah.
Bolt, a plugin developed by a studio called Ludic. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And they made it available for free in all Unity versions, which means the battlefield is now leveled. Now the big question.
Oh, wait a minute. It's not leveled. They are actually just playing the game, okay? Unreal is still kind of farming with Blueprints, but Unity at least can fight now a little bit. It's not gonna win, but it's it's fighting. I should spend like a day or two with Unity's visual scripting and see what I can do. That would be funny, but yeah. See how powerful it is, okay? I don't hear this bullshit. The playing field is leveled. Okay, we're here.
Question is, which one should you choose? And the answer is either of the two. They work and look pretty much the same. You move the nodes around and connect them together to perform operations. The name of each node is the same as its coding part. So for example, if you want to move the player, you will call the move node. Same as how you would call the move function via code. Can you learn to code with visual coding? The answer is yes, but you learn visual coding. It's exactly the same as written code, but it will give you an idea how written code works. Because, as I already mentioned, the nodes are visual representations of the written code. Plus, the same coding principles apply to...
This is kind of true, but keep in mind, syntax and the structures, like in Blueprints, I don't have C++ and header files. I don't have like different integrations, like everything is done for me. I just kind of have to call up the function or something like that. So you can kind of learn the general concepts of programming Blueprints, but don't think like you learn Blueprints, you basically know like 60% of C++. You're just gonna go over, watch few tutorials and know C++. You might know like 10 to 15% of C++ if you know Blueprints very well. So it's not like, yeah, you're gonna learn a little bit, but not that much.
Visual as well as written code. So for someone who is afraid of starting with coding from the beginning, you can start with visual code, and when you get comfortable with it, move on to written code. And if you're wondering, can you create a full game just with visual code? The answer is yes, you can. But it is better to combine visual code with written code for better performance of the game. And also, some features of the game where you need more control are better done with written code than visual code. Next up, we have the interface. And for some reason, every video talking about Unity versus Unreal compares their interface, as that is one of the reasons why you should pick one engine over.
For me, I think Unreal's interface is way... I don't like looking at this, whatever this is. To me, at least, this looks way better. Unreal's interface can be confusing a little bit in the beginning, but I think you get the gist of it real soon. Like, this feels to me like an engine from like 10 to 15 years ago, I don't know. This just does not look nice to me. Like, everything is messy. Like, when I look to this right side, I don't technically see anything. I have to actually focus on stuff to read it. There is no like consistency. Like, these letters are really small compared to the folders, and they're not kind of in focus. So if I want to kind of quote unquote see something, I have to actually focus on each thing and then go through it to see something. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just not. Let me open up this. Like, when I look at this, there is some things that are kind of similar, but I don't know, like these letters seem way more pronounced to me. So if I'm trying to search for whatever player start, it feels like I will just right away go to this, like, okay, I get what's happening. There's also like an icon if you get used to like what each icon means. Like this, like, since this actor is kind of separated in this like block of actors, this is way more readable to me. Like, I don't really like this. This is not that readable to me. I generally, since I know how Unreal works, this generally I kind of know what each thing is, but I don't like how this looks. But this is real nice. I like this. I don't like this feature what that they implemented. This kind of weird kind of filtering, but it's kind of its own block that you cannot remove. Kind of weird. I like this thing at the top. I think it's really well done. Like one thing that is kind of hard to do with UI is kind of not make it like not monolithic, but it's the same. Like technically you could show these options, and each option could be like a similar type of button, but the name is changed, maybe an icon is changed. But since it's kind of one thing is like longer, smaller, stuff like that, it actually makes it more readable, because you can just like look at it and instinctively by the shape kind of know what's happening. But if this was like 10 buttons and they're all the same size with just different text, you would actually have to read the text to kind of figure things out. Like in this, like I can just instantly like bam, 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 I know exactly where things are. So yeah, you can see kind of the difference. Like when I go back to this, like everything is so muddy, like I don't know, what is this? I don't like it.
Or the other. I'm going to make this step easy. The interface of both engines doesn't matter at all. First,
What's that take, dude? Also look at this top view. This is kind of nice, right? Like if you separate it like this, it's way more readable. I don't know. Like icon, you can read it by icon. You can read it by text. Right now, it's kind of small in his screen. Like if it's like if it was full screen, even letters would be a bit more readable. But it's so nice. I don't know. I know exactly what's happening. At least for most of these that I use usually. Like a marketplace I almost never use, but this is also Unreal 4. So, but yeah, I don't know. I like it way more.
First of all, they are similar. You have the project tab in Unity or content tab in Unreal, where all your game assets are sorted. You have the hierarchy tab in Unity or world outline in Unreal, where you can see all the game elements.
Yeah, I think. Okay, let him. I'm gonna let him finish.
Placed in the game scene. There's the inspector tab in Unity or details tab in Unreal, where you can see details of a selected game element from the game scene. And there is the scene tab in Unity or scene view in Unreal, where you see how your game looks like. Pretty much the same functionalities, only the name.
Okay, I think by UI he means just how, like the layout, like it has like similar tabs, I guess, or similar windows. Like sure, I guess, but they're absolutely not the same. Like you don't define the look of an interface or how good it is by the layout. Like I can just create like a same layout as Unreal for my whatever indie game engine. It's gonna be the same as Unreal. Like I actually have to make it look and feel good, not just make like a layout the same. Like yeah, I don't agree with this at all. Like when you look at this, like this is not the same at all. I guess you have hierarchy and you have an outline, but just because you have two tabs that are similar, they're not ordered the same. They don't have the same names, the same icons, the same colors. There is like almost nothing the same about them. It's like saying like the taste of cake doesn't matter because these both people made a cake, but one made a cake with whatever milk and whatever, and the other guy made like a fruit cake. Like they're gonna be completely different cakes, even if both of them, I guess, made a cake or whatever. I think they're completely different. Okay.
Are different. You can also rearrange the tabs in the engine editor however you want. So when it comes to interface of both engines, they are similar if not the same. And after
Ooh, okay. Okay, I don't know what this take is. We are just gonna ignore it. The UIs are not the same.
after one day of using either of the engines, you'll get used to its interface. Now we come to the juicy part, how hard it is to learn Unity or Unreal. I must admit that Unity has way more tutorials and guides than Unreal Engine. For some reason, very few people cover Unreal Engine anywhere online, me being one of the few people. It's also rare to see
Wait,
C++
what? I was distracted, wait.
than Unreal or Unreal. I must admit that Unity has way more tutorials and guides than Unreal Engine. For some reason, very few people cover Unreal Engine anywhere.
Is that true? Maybe, I guess, a year ago. Maybe you can see it a little bit. No, even a year ago, it was... There is a lot of tutorials, I think, for a lot of stuff. Yeah, I don't think this is kind of true. Okay.
Anywhere online, me being one of the few people. It's also rare to see C++ tutorials for Unreal Engine, which is one of the reasons why I focused on that a lot in my Game Dev Pro.
Yeah, I guess we cannot test this. I wanted to go to YouTube and check, but Yeah, maybe for Unity, but also you have to look at the quality of tutorials. I think if you looked at both, there is probably gonna be a bit higher quality for Unreal. By high quality, I mean the tutorials, they are better made. But maybe not, yeah, I'm not sure.
One of the things that I find funny, people always mention, is the documentation for both engines. It's like one of the arguments why Unity is easier to learn, and that is because its documentation is better. Now, let me tell you right away, you will never learn a game engine based on its documentation, because in the documentation, you'll only find raw explanations with or without basic examples of a certain functionality you're looking up. For example, if you want to see what vector3 move towards function does, in the documentation, it will say it moves a vector from point A to point B, and below you'll see a simple example. Not very helpful when you are a beginner, but it is useful when you get a grasp of the engine.
Oh, yeah, I disagree with this also. I don't think one single thing will ever like make you like a developer. Like you can just like watch tutorials, never open the engine and be like Unreal developer. Or you can't just, or I guess it'd be almost impossibly hard to just open Unreal, never watch any videos, documentation, whatever, and you just kind of try to make things. Like there is too many combinations and buttons to click for you to kind of walk your way around into making something. So yeah, I don't think one single thing would make you like a developer or make you learn efficiently. But I actually recommend for beginners to the documentation that he's talking about is kind of like just looking up a reference for like a node or whatever, but I wouldn't recommend using documentation like that. Like when you're a beginner, documentation for like starting out, what are blueprints, whatever, stuff like that, like general stuff, introduction or like fresh start to like a thing, and then it goes through kind of details how this class or object works. So if I type, let's say, if you go in here, so we have, okay, what's new? That's fun. This is probably for more experienced people that want actually to see the details of new stuff. But like understanding the basics, like if you're a beginner and you go in here, install the engine, hardware specifications, interface, like this is pretty nice documentation. I would recommend this instead of like looking at a random tutorial how to make your character, I don't know, jump or whatever. Like this is pretty nice. It gives introduction of the things that you want, whatever. Terminology, this is kind of an important thing. So what is a blueprint in the Unreal? Well, it's a this, and this. You go through to kind of basics like this. This would be, I think, pretty important for beginners to get a general theory, general feel of the engine. Okay, what is a project? What is a blueprint? What is an object? What is an actor? Now I'm not sure how good it is. Let's read the part. An actor is any object that can be placed into a level, such as camera, static mesh, or player stat location. Okay, this is an important one that can be placed into a level. I like to explain it that the actor is an object that has transform, so it has location, rotation, and scale, meaning that it can be put into the level. I like to explain that part because just saying this can be placed into a level implies like this is kind of maybe the only thing or whatever. But if you say like, okay, this is kind of a child of an object and it gives the ability for the object to be placed into a 3D world. And then if they also learned like the hierarchy, so parent-child relationships, stuff like that, then they're gonna know that any child from the actor will have that ability to be placed into the world. Yeah, so I guess they actually say it here. Actors support real transformations such as translation. Okay, support is kind of weird word for a beginner. If you're a beginner, this might feel weird. They can be created, spawned, and destroyed through gameplay code or C++. Okay. Casting. Okay, I'm not sure if you need like, I guess we are going through terminology. This is not like teaching you stuff, but okay, component, like this is pretty good for documentation. Then later you can maybe go programming and scripting. Let's do blueprint visual scripting. Bam. Quick start. How can we quickly start with blueprints? And then we go through this. Like what this person is talking about when he talks about like about documentation. I think he's talking about like Unreal Engine. Let's see, actors of class. Let's see this. So APIs. I think he's talking about this. Like documentation is like giving you one sentence explanation of what it is, which you can usually get by hovering over the node in blueprints, and then you get like basic explanation of like input and output variables or something. Like this, this is like type of the documentation that I never even use. Like I don't care about this. I never go to look for this. This is almost useless to me. And if he's talking only about this, I guess I agree. But Unreal's documentation is way more broad than just like API reference information or whatever. But yeah, let's go back.
And you know how to use its language, and by that time you'll just use the documentation as a reference. So the main thing when it comes to learning any engine is the amount of tutorials, blogs, and books you can find. And in this case, there are...
Oh my god, I kind of disagree. Tutorials, I don't like them because they get specific, they don't explain much stuff, and then you're kind of lost when you try to change anything. Books, I'm not a really fan of books because they kind of take time to write, and then changes are made a lot. Some stuff can get outdated really quickly. So it can kind of be a risk, like you read a book, spend like 20 hours reading it, and then you come back and like out of 50 things that you learn, like 20 are deprecated or something. Like it's kind of weird. I don't know, why would you read a book when you can go through some course? And what else did he say?
You'll just use the documentation as a reference. So the main thing when it comes to learning any engine is the amount of tutorials, blogs, and books.
Blogs. Yeah, blogs can be okay, but it's kind of tutorials, written tutorials kind of, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I usually recommend two things. So the documentations, the type that I showed, so you have quick start guides, you have generally read like terminology, read stuff like that. Like just go, like their documentation is literally sorted by like the most beginner things to most advanced. So you can just kind of go and learn generally things through documentation, and courses and tutorials specifically from Epic, evangelists, developers, whatever, you have their learning portal. I think those two things are most important, and then you can also from time to time watch tutorials if you need something very specific, or like Google around to just find something, maybe you trying to debug something or whatever. But yeah, oh yeah, we disagree on a lot here.
Books you can find. And in this case, there are more tutorials for Unity than Unreal. But don't let that discourage you, as there are still resources to learn Unreal Engine. My YouTube...
Actually, let me see this, if documentation is better in Unity for beginners. Because he said, I think that the documentation, like tutorials, I can maybe see it like a year ago. I think right now it's kind of equal for tutorials. There's a bunch of new tutorials for Unreal, and they're pretty good. Okay, getting started. Installing Unity, Unity interface, creating gameplay. Okay. Okay, this is not bad at all. I like this. Basically kind of how Unreal does it. I bet he would say that this is kind of similar to Unreal's layout for documentation, but I bet he would say that this is exactly the same. You have the tab here where you have like a hierarchy of whatever things, and then you have your main view here. But yeah, let's actually compare Unreal Engine. We go here and let's open up any tabs. Like maybe I'm just used to Unreal a bit more, but I feel like this is more clear. Wait, where am I clicking? Sure, let's do working with content. Let's do artist quick start, sure. Like this feels more readable when it's a bit spaced out. You have like bolded things that you are clicking on. I guess this kind of has like highlighted. This is nice. I don't like the pluses. I'm not sure. Even in here, the pluses, I guess they are less pronounced. I didn't even know that they have it because they're less pronounced. But I don't like how, like when you put a color, like this bright color on an icon, your eye just gets pulled to this side. But there is nothing there. It's just pluses and minuses. Like that's all it is here. But when I look at this, like first I go there and then I kind of try to go and read. When in here some pluses is kind of barely visible, like I'm reading stuff right away. Like look at this and I'm just trying to find, first I'm gonna go here because it's highlighted, but like I'm just reading this and I didn't even know pluses exist. I thought they had no pluses. But yeah, I like this highlight. I don't think they have this pronounced highlight. It's kind of weaker here. So like that. This is fine. I think Unreal has similar thing. Yeah. This might be even better than Unreal's. I like the spacing. This is kind of a bit too far up. Feels almost disconnected from everything else. Oh, I left it out. Okay. Okay, Unity has decent documentation. I thought they had a bit trashier one, but it's fine.
Channel is one of them, where you have multiple videos covering basic and advanced features of Unreal Engine with blueprints and C++. Now we have the soul of the rivalry between Unity and Unreal
Graphics.
Engine. Most of the time, when you see a comparison between the two engines, the main comparison is between the graphics they produce. Unreal has got to the point where it's rendering ultra hyper realistic scenes that you can't differentiate between real life scenarios and virtual scenarios. I mean, look at the metahumans Unreal Engine created. It looks insane. You can't tell the difference between a real person and a metahuman.
That's not true. You can see between the human and the person, but to be fair, I think Unreal has out of the box better stuff. It's already kind of set up for you. Like in Unreal, you kind of have to take out stuff for a certain portion of graphics and visual fidelity. But in Unity, as far as I understood, you kind of start from scratch. So if you don't know about post-processing, you don't know about bloom, you don't know about fog, you don't know about all this stuff, your Unity graphics are gonna look trash. If you don't know about all of these things in Unreal, you can just open like environment mixer and click on the buttons, create fog, create height, fog, create, like you can just click like 5 buttons and you have like decent looking level where you can put stuff and it looks nice. So yeah, there is, oh my god, there was one showcase in Unity I was like blown away how good it was. I think Unity has the capability, but if they had tools to make it way more easier to add in the project, Unity would get upgrade to visuals instead of making you do everything from scratch and like finding plugins or something. Unity showcase. There was one showcase. Oh, this one, yeah. This looks really good. If this was like pure Unity, this is really good. To be fair, I'm seeing some tricks with lighting where the light starts turning around her as soon as she starts moving. I think it helps kind of cover it. The hair I think looks a little bit stiff, but it helps cover it, I think. Let's see. Yeah, that smart light move was nice.
I have in my head everything that anyone has ever known. You have in your heart everything anyone has ever felt. Power is given only to those who dare to lower themselves and pick it up.
Yeah, that was real nice. The only thing, now that I'm looking a second time, they had, I don't know how you would call this, I guess cinematography or whatever, they had really nice ways to hide a lot of bad stuff that can happen with animation, stuff like that. The only thing for her that is giving it away for me is the animation, and this is always the case with 3D. Like, if you just look at animation, it's kind of, yeah, I don't know why the animation is so hard to get right. But everything else is fine. Like, there is like micro hairs on her chin. There is like bunch of nice stuff. Subsurface scattering, really nice. You can see it on her nose here. Even here, like, really nice soft shadows. Like, everything is great. Just animation, it always screws it up. Like, if we watch it without sound. Like, if you just look at this part, like, you can feel the animation. There is something missing. But yeah, that one was really nice. Like, top-notch showcase for them.
Unity is not that far away. Historically, over the years, Unity was way behind Unreal Engine when it comes to graphics, but over the years, Unity introduced their own powerful tools that made their graphics rendering system.
I don't think Unreal was really far away like years ago. I think what happened is that Lumen, Nanite, and some new improvements to graphics in Unreal actually started running away in recent times, in like the last 2 years. 2 or 3 years, they start kind of running away from Unity. I think before that, they kind of were a bit more similar, even if Unreal had a little bit better. But I think what's happening now is that they started running away, but then Unity started catching up. So they both kind of, started sprinting basically.
System insane. So much that it also got to the point where you can't differentiate a scene made in Unity versus a scene from a real life scenario. And Unity's latest demo enemies is a practical representation of that. The woman in the scene looks so real you can't tell if it's a real human or a 3D character basically. Now that being said,
yeah, it feels like this guy has a real low threshold for what is real or not. Like there are things that look realistic and Unreal, but if you showed me and Unity and Unreal, and if you showed it to me, like most of the time I would guess, okay, this is a 3D render, but it can still look realistic, but indistinguishable from real life. Like that's so challenging. Like a lot of movies struggle with that. Like yeah, it's really hard.
You should not care for any of that, because if you plan to create a game by yourself, you'll not create anything where you would need any of those advanced rendering features. So your plans to create a new GTA game are not gonna come true. Sorry to bring it up
Okay,
here.
this is kind of true.
To create some
Like these graphics fidelity stuff where Unreal is showcasing their whatever thing, Unity showcasing their thing, like they're not really presenting to your like 2-person team. They're presenting it to like big studios and stuff like that that can actually use the technology. But yeah.
something like that takes a lot of time and resources, which indie game developers don't have. The games you can create on your own will not require any of those features. And besides,
That's kind of not true. You can use the features, but they're not going to be as polished and there are not going to be as many. So I sometimes use in games like depth of field, or I can use like cool bloom effects, cool volumetric fog effects. All of these things I can use, and big teams also use it. But mine are gonna look more clunky, less blended in, might not move that right. I won't have like many particles. I won't like have some advanced camera effects like we have here. What's this, bokeh and stuff like that. Like I probably won't have like some crazy stuff, but I can still use some advanced features.
if you compare games created in Unity and Unreal, even advanced ones, it will be hard to tell the difference which game is created with which engine. This is more a concern for big game studios that have a team of people working on the graphics part of the game, and they'll be able to utilize the full potential of the rendering pipelines of both engines. All in all, graphics should not be a parameter you need to take into consideration when choosing.
Yeah, Unreal and Unity graphics probably not. The only thing is how much into graphics you want to go. If you want to go with Unity, you're gonna have to spend some time learning stuff from scratch. You won't have everything kind of granted to you, or like the most basic stuff granted to you. Like if I don't know anything about graphics and I don't want to learn anything about graphics, if I go to Unreal, I can get stuff pretty easy. Like a 10-minute tutorial can give me exponential volumetric fog. It can give me direct light with soft shadows. It can give me light rays. It can give me what can else? It can give me like sky, volumetric clouds. It can give me a bunch of stuff, like just a 10-minute tutorial, maybe even less. In Unity, probably not. You're probably gonna have to work a bit harder. So that's kind of the biggest issue.
Choosing between Unity or Unreal Engine. Now we're getting to the main part, which is creating a game with the engine. Generally, all comparisons between Unity and Unreal you'll see will say Unreal is better for 3D and Unity is better for 2D. While that might be true if you are a AAA game studio, it isn't necessarily the same for an indie developer. The reason is simple. Any type of game you want to create, you can create it with either Unity or Unreal.
Okay, this is kind of true. Yeah, usually people say like, yeah, if you want to make this type of game, go with Unity. If you want to make this type of game, go with Unreal. Which maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe it was more true. But today you can do 2D in Unreal. It's not that hard. You can do 3D in Unity. It's not that hard. And the biggest issue is just gonna be the paradigms of blueprints, C++, C#, visuals. It's gonna be those stuff. It's not gonna be like a type of game that you want to make. Except it's something like highly specific, like some highly advanced stuff that only, I don't know, Unity has the plugin for it to make it work easily, and in Unreal you're gonna have to create it from scratch or something. Like maybe something like that, but for general things, like it's whatever.
Real. That being said, Unreal does have a lot of built-in tools that are native to Unreal and doesn't require additional plugins. And these tools are very helpful when it comes to 3D game development. As far as 2D goes, Unreal has its Paper 2D framework, but as far as I can tell, they either stop supporting it or they plan to stop supporting it. So for 2D, Unity is definitely the way to go.
Are they planning to stop supporting it? I don't think that's true. Yeah, I don't think that's true for Paper 2D. I mean, yeah, it's not deprecated, it's not going away, and this was video like 1 year ago, and it's still fine, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they would deprecate it, because they don't have anything. I don't think they have any new like feature or something for that, for 2D. So deprecating it, they will just remove a feature but not replace it, which I don't think they do usually.
Simply because if you plan to create a game, you need to think ahead and plan how to save time and money while developing the game. A lot of built-in tools that are very helpful when it gets Paper 2D framework, but as far as I can tell, they either stop supporting it or they plan to stop supporting it. So for 2D, Unity is definitely the way to go. Unity also has a lot of
yeah, I think he's assuming that Paper 2D is gonna get removed, which I guess then you should do 2D in Unity. But as far as I know, it's fine, so 2D in Unreal is also fine.
built-in tools for 2D framework you can use. In the end, we can say while Unreal has a better workflow for 3D games, an indie game developer can create the same 3D game in both Unity or Unreal. As far as 2D goes, Unity is the dominant engine here.
Yeah, I don't agree, but yeah. I think you could create the same type of game in both engines, but it's kind of about the workflow, what is easier. And since Unreal has blueprints, it will be for beginners easier to create in Unreal. And 2D is not getting yet deprecated, so that's fine too, I think.
Next up, we have plugins. This is one of my favorite things when it comes to game engines.
Oh my god, is he gonna say that the Unity has like way better store with way more stuff? That might have been true like a year or two ago or 3, but I think Unreal has pretty good support for stuff.
As I already mentioned, for 3D games, Unreal has a lot of built-in functionality you can use to make your games better. Things like making your graphics better, adding stunning particle effects, and so on. Of course, there's also the Unreal Marketplace where you can find a ton of other plugins. However, I must say, Unity has the upper hand here. Because on the Unity Asset Store, you'll find way more plugins that will help you create better games much faster. And if you're wondering why am I even mentioning plugins in this debate, simply because if you plan to create a game, you need to think ahead and...
Okay, let's do this. If he said like Unity's Marketplace or launcher or whatever is better than Unreal's, I would probably agree with that. Like I don't remember going here for a long time, but I bet it's better. Unreal is so, I mean, it's kind of laggy, but it's so slow. It loads so slow. It's annoying. I don't know why they don't fix it. Like they definitely have the money, but the experience is probably worse than Unity's. But let's see. Like if I search for, let's search for something basic. I'll just type template. Let's try to search by free since we are doing for beginners. Multiplayer FPS template, tower defense template. Okay, this is a lot of downloads. Or likes, I guess. Multiplayer card template, simple 2D template, flat performance template creator, automatic. Okay. So we can also check if it's bloated or not. I'm assuming Unity is more bloated, but maybe they have way more stuff. Okay, this does not look bad at all. Let's do epics. Okay, let's see. Only this. Okay, this is kind of missing stuff. So we have RPG template. We have immersive template. What's this? Okay, we can say that. Yeah, it's probably a little bit better. Okay. I did not do like a too big of a test, but yeah.
Plan how to save time and money while developing the game, especially if you're creating a bigger game that has a storyline, quests, missions.
But also, to be fair, Unreal probably has more tools and stuff inside the engine, so Unity probably relies on more plugins to kind of make some stuff work. Like Unreal right now has like modeling tools, even like rigging tools, has a bunch of like things for like control rigs, data assets, have like bunch of stuff already in the engine. So to be fair, Unity probably does need more plugins to make it like work better and create better workflows.
Missions, boss fights, and so on. It's always better to buy some of those systems and implement them in your game than coding them on your own. The reason is because it will take a lot of time to create anything decent from scratch. Time that you need to save, because the more it takes you to create your game, the less revenue you'll earn. And for those of you thinking it's cheating to use third-party assets to create your game, get a life, boomer. Now we're getting to the best part, getting a job in a game studio. If that is your goal, then what I'm about to say will shock you.
Oh, will it?
Because if you plan to get a job in a game studio, there are some things to take into consideration. First, if there's some particular studio you like, I suggest you look them up and see which engine they use to create their.
Yeah, this is fair. Like if you just like vaguely, like if I want to work at like, since I'm from Serbia, if I wanted to work in like Trilateral, like I wouldn't be using Unity or whatever. So if you have like a specific company in mind, try to learn their engine. If your goal is like in 1 to 2 years I want to work in this company, then sure, pick the engine that they're using. Or you can probably even email them and ask them like, hey, I'm thinking about learning game development. I wanted to see like what engine or what tools you use. I want to kind of work, or like hey, I want to work in your company in the future or whatever. Some companies are using like internal tools, but the others that are using like Unity or whatever, you can just learn that.
Games. If it's Unity, then learn Unity. If it's Unreal, then learn Unreal. One thing to keep in mind is there are game studios that don't use Unity or Unreal. Instead, they have their own engine, and most of the time that engine will be similar to Unreal. If no other similarities, at least the custom engine will use C++ as its programming language.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he said like that proprietary engines that maybe the company is creating specifically for their type of games or whatever would resemble Unreal. But I do have experience with working in the company that they use their own engine, and it was just an engine specifically for hidden object puzzle adventure games. So it looked nothing like Unreal. It was, yeah. So I remember working that, but yeah, I'm not sure why he would say that. I think like proprietary engines will just look however they need to look for the type of game that they're making. Like if somebody's making like an engine for specifically racing games, it's just gonna be optimized for that. So whatever that means, it's gonna use that
language. So for this part, I would say Unreal has the upper hand, because even if the studio you apply to doesn't use Unreal, it will be easy for you to adapt to their custom engine because it is similar to.
I don't think it matters much like Unity or Unreal. I guess for bigger companies, probably Unreal, just because it's widely adopted. Unity is usually thought of like an indie or like small company engine. But I think the biggest thing is just learning programming language. Like 90% of the jobs are going to ask for some type of programming experience. It might be like Python for like creating tools, or C++ for Unreal for actually being like a gameplay programmer, or like C# for Unity. Like I think programming will be the biggest thing. And if you're going the art route, then the engines don't matter that much.
To Unreal. Plus, knowing C++ is always an advantage when getting a game development job, because C++
big thing, like programming
is the
and C++.
best suited programming language for game development. And lastly, we have non-game applications. Things like architecture, commercials, even simulation.
Okay, this is going to be for Unreal because they have huge support for that. Especially like VR or architecture visualization or product visualization, stuff like that.
are created with Unity and Unreal Engine. And believe it or not, a lot of people, even game developers, are wanted for these positions. The reason why I'm bringing this up is it can be a source of income while you're creating your game, because as you know, we need to live, eat, and pay our bills. And if you're working on your game for 5 years, then you'll not have any money to live, eat, and pay your bills. But if something in these fields catches your eye, you can apply for those positions, get a job, and work on your game in your spare time. And for this part, I would have to give the upper hand to Unreal Engine, simply because of how detailed you can make things, which is a must, especially in fields like architecture. Even movie scenes.
I think he's just saying like it will more easily look better in Unreal, but I think Unreal is just landslide better, just because they literally have like official support, big support for like all of those stuff, like VR, like they just have way more tools. It's way more easy to do with Unreal.
Are created in Unreal Engine because of the high quality and detail you can pull out of it. This is not to say you can't do the same things with Unity. You can, but it will not reach the level of Unreal Engine. This is where the 3D graphics dominance of Unreal Engine shines. And there you have it, a detailed analysis of all important parts you should take.
Okay, this one was a little bit rough. I think I disagreed a lot with a few things. Yeah, especially when he said like UI is the same between them. Like, what? Like, you can't just look at the layout and like say both of them have like some type of like hierarchy or like outline window tab and like a few others and it's the same. Like, what? Like, user experience is way different. User interface just by the look is way different. What font was used, like how icons are used, what is highlighted, what is not highlighted, like it's way different. I don't know. Okay, interesting video.